So here we are in season 3, and I finally have a real fire. So it's February, it kind of makes a little more sense this way. So with Joe Co-Album coming up next month, I know I've been talking about that a lot. I wanted to let you insiders know that I have not forgotten about you, and that I still want to keep chipping away at that list of unreleased material and trying to complete that collection of stuff that's already been written from the past. So this month, February, is no exception. Short and sweet this week. I just want to tell you about an insider's release that we're going to have for February. Back in, about 2000, the year 2000 or so, there was a North song written that we used to play at live shows from time to time. It probably wasn't a standard, but it was a song that we added to the set every once in a while. And the song was called "Don't Let Me Go." Being a song that's as old as it was, I mean, North started in 1995, so the project was, 5 years old or so when this song was written. And it definitely has some of that kind of geeky, over-the-top, quality that some of that older material had. I think it was a song that was definitely, maybe a little bit of a reach. I think it's a classic example of a song that I sort of wrote above my head. I think one of the things that's really important as a songwriter is that you don't limit your writing to music that you can play. So obviously that's a double-edged sword, right? The good news is that you push yourself and you write this great stuff that comes out of your head maybe, but you have no ability to execute on. And then the downside is you have no ability to execute on it. So it's very hard to put into shows and things like that. Thankfully, with the talents of the rest of the band behind me, my own shortfalls on this song were kind of partially hidden. But it was a song that we did play once in a while, and we did have a couple of fans tell us that they really liked it. When we started working on Drowning in Sky, the full-length North record that came out in 2008, this song was a possible contender for the record. And thankfully, we put down some parts for it in the studio. Now, we ended up, with all the material we had to choose from, we ended up choosing relatively quickly to not put this song on the record. So we really only have these first couple of rough takes that we got in the studio. So this month's Insider's release is one of those takes from about 2007 or so. This is a recording of myself, Marcus Nee, North's bassist, and my partner in crime on the project, and Hans Mossing, our longtime, decade-plus drummer with the project. Just the three of us putting down this song in the studio. Now, what you're going to hear is admittedly rough. You're going to hear that this song is complicated. It's got a lot of changes. There's actually a spot in the song a couple of minutes in where I retuned the guitar during the song. It was like, I don't want to say it was a gimmick because I didn't put it in for that purpose, but I put it in because I wanted to switch to drop D in the middle of the song, and then I wanted to switch back to standard because of the chords that I was using. And I actually wrote in a way to kind of do that in a way that made sense musically. So you're going to hear a couple of little spots in there where, there's a spot in the beginning where a couple of lyrics get dropped. I'm actually going to provide insiders with the lyrics as well so that you can kind of see it. The drop D jam section in the middle, I actually had extended for the record, so you're going to hear the band kind of catch up with me in that spot where we realized that it was a little bit longer than we expected it to be. So, I mean, this is classic stuff that happens when you're dropping roughs in the studio, particularly on a song like this that we didn't play live often and that was very challenging to begin with. Lyrically, this song also kind of has that geeky 1990s quality a little bit in the sense that I'm talking about some esoteric things. The song is... well, maybe we could talk another time about what the song's about, but it's very much about the whole ride of life, the ups and downs of it all, and you'll hear in the lyrics and see in the lyrics that it's got a lot of heavy vocabulary and this kind of stuff. It's not your typical pop tune. It edges in the direction of progressive rock a little bit. I think that's what I was aiming for back when. So. Great example of one of the lost North songs that some of the fans might remember from the live shows, but that never really made it onto recording. So this is Don't Let Me Go, studio rough from 2007, of a song that was completed in about the year 2000. So hope you enjoy that. Thanks again. Talk to you next week. Okay, for a music link this week, I want to stick with the concept album theme as we are now within 2 weeks of the beginning of Joe's concept album month, or Joe Coalmo, which kicks off on March 1st. This particular album I want to talk about is actually one that's of personal significance to me for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that musically, it's a great example of a concept album, and I think it's very neat to talk about the kinds of moods that the album moves through, the threads that tie it together. It's really a great example of the ideas that kind of make a concept record stick together and really take you on a journey, as I think all good albums should, whether they're concept albums or not. But the second reason it's significant is that this was a record that I worked on back in the early 2000s in my years as a recording engineer. I definitely had some landmark records that I worked on during my years as a sound engineer, and this was certainly one of them. This record is by a project called the Hopescope, and the album is called Bring in the Sun, subtitled A 5-Year Journal. The folks that I met working on this record were probably just as significant, or more significant really, than the experience of working on it. It was a great experience as an engineer to really move through the amount of material we did in the time that we did, to watch these musicians work, to watch the producer, pull parts together and really just construct this album in a very well thought out way. I think the band had done a huge amount of homework ahead of time. It was really a great experience. It was a very well planned record. But like I said, more important than that, the friends that I made working on this project, really, really great folks. I mean, all the members of the band, talented folks, some of whom I got to work with after that in other capacities. The front man, sort of mastermind of the project, one of the primary songwriters, by the name of Eric Empson. This was largely his project. I think he wrote a lot of the material and kind of pulled it all together. One of the most talented rock guitarists that I know, someone who's really just very impressive as a musician. And the other person that was very significant, who I met working on the project, is Jeff Elbel, who is, for those who are paying attention, so far the only other person who has signed up for Joe Coalmo besides me. Jeff Elbel was a producer of this record, and honestly, as a young engineer, Jeff really showed me what it meant to be a producer. And working on this record was not only a kickoff to that great friendship, but also he really changed my thinking about how to make records. And in the North productions that came, North was very much a going concern at this time. And in the North productions that followed the making of this record, I actually feel like my own approach to production and the creation of material was very, very influenced by Jeff's work. Musically, this record is fantastic. It definitely is centered on a rock theme. I mean, it's very traditional in that sense, but it moves through the space of rock with a lot of changes. There are songs that are just really powerful, really hardcore, almost arena rock type, just classic great rock. And then there are songs that really dial it down, take you almost into the space of blues. There's color all over the place. Every track almost has little things that are hiding in there for you to hear. Lots of different feels. Some of my favorites on the album, What is the Sound of One Heartbreaking, track 3, is a track that is very different, almost kind of stands out on the record for me a little bit. It involves this beautiful keyboard ostinato that's kind of tying the whole thing together. I want to say the drums, if I recall, are recorded with mallets, with the snare turned off, almost like this very kind of subdued feeling. Really, really neat tone to the song. You come out of that into a song called Letting Go, which is really nice, very acoustic. It's got piano in it, just this nice, bright, light kind of tone. There are clearly songs on the record like Blinded by the Scene, Passion Rock, songs that are just go out guts, rock all the way. And then, of course, the title track, Bring in the Sun, is really, if you take a listen to any of the stuff on the record, you know, if you don't think you're going to have time to check out the whole album, check out that track. That is really the single from the record, and I think it's kind of the centerpiece in a way, even though it's way out in position 9 because the record tells a story. It's just this great. It's just this great piece that kind of like signifies the record in my mind. I think it's a perfect title track in that regard. So what I think makes this great as a concept album is that it does tell a story, but there's not really a narrative per se. I mean, you're not listening to something that you know, has to be stitched together in exactly that order. The songs stand on their own in a way. You could listen to them really in isolation if you want to, but if you listen to them in you know, as a collection in the order, you're going to hear the emotions that the album goes through, and the story that it tells is really this great story about you know, someone who's immersed in the world of music, you know, finds issues with it, you know, becomes disillusioned with it. It gets tied into their own personal journey, and then eventually comes back together at the end, and you find this new realization of what it's about. So it's really a very cool record. Fortunately, the whole album is on YouTube, so I put a link right here in the video for you to check out. It's also down in the description. I believe the description of the video for this album has the timings if you want to advance to particular tracks and check them out. I believe they're in there. So Bring in the Sun, a 5-year journal by the Hopescope. A really cool example of a concept record, not only musically, a fantastic album, but also in terms of me and my influence, both in the world of production and also in the world of engineering. So I hope you enjoy checking that out. Thanks.